so I really hated school because I couldn't learn the way I was being taught. And so here's yet another person, another teacher trying to teach us, and I'm like, whatever. But as the school year went on, in October, he said to us, and I'll never forget it because he said we're, it was right around Halloween, and he said, language is music. Every syllable is a beat. And when he said that, I was like, wow, I love music. Language, not so much. But in my poet brain, I was like, well, if I love music, then I should love language because he said language is music. And he assigned us haikus, and he said each haiku is a little song. Think of every syllable as a beat to that song. And I went home and I tried it and I liked it. And I wrote another and another and another. And I kept writing. And it was the first time I had access to my own voice in a way that I was excited by. And the next day I went back to school and I actually raised my hand, which, was not typical for a student like myself. And he called on me and I said, I wrote many. He's like, read your favorite one and come back for lunch and I will read all of them. And I read that haiku and then I came to him for lunch and he read, there was 10, there was like probably almost 100. I like wrote for hours and hours. And after he read each and every one of them, he said, wow, you're a poet. And he gave me a name about my inside and not my outside. And that really struck me as a young person. And he said, you got to keep doing this. And he gave me this beautiful anthology called On City Streets. And I nearly memorized this anthology. There's still a few left on eBay. I bought many of them and gave them as gifts. That it was this anthology that had all these poems and poets from the city and versus anywhere that I wasn't from, because I was from New York City. I wanted to give young people the opportunity to have that experience that I had, a chance to enter into a learning environment that celebrates their voice, that wants to develop that voice, and that believes that we all can learn. And so that's my story. And one of the reasons why I started Community Word Project in particular was the idea that, it's one thing to do something, it's another thing to teach it. So I was put in a unique situation where I was thrown into a classroom through this other organization without any training. And I just felt like that was a misstep. And luckily I was a natural, but what happens if I wasn't? What would have happened to those young people's imaginations, and their vulnerability if I didn't know what to do? So when I started Community Word is to create a teaching artist training, which Jay now co-directs, and to give artists the opportunity to transform their creative process into teaching tools and learn how to comprehensively and responsibly reach all learners in all kinds of classrooms. So that's where Community Word began. And we also now work in up to 24 schools across New York City, pairing a writer with either a musician, a visual artist, a theater artist, or a dancer. And that team of two artists goes into the classroom once a week and and treats young people's imaginations as if they're gold and honors their voices and helps amplify those voices, both individually and collectively. So today we're going to be playing both individually and collectively, with our words and with each other's words, with the idea of what is a collective voice, what is an individual voice, and how do you experiment and grow and develop both of those voices. And now I'm going to pass it on to Jay and hear his story. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I'm really, really excited to work with you all today.
Really, I'll just tell you a little story about language and then how this prompt came about for today. Really, with me, I've always been obsessed with language, a curiosity about how it looked on the page. So I like to say I discovered hip hop in third grade, recording Hot 97 on tape decks. That then got me excited to buy 10 CDs for the low price of $1 on my mom's debit card, or cash check, all those good things. You got to pay $1 for 10 CDs. And I got Busta Rhymes CD, I got Lauryn Hill CD, and then to justify my purchase, I bought my mom this Tracy Chapman, her CD when it came out. Lo and behold, I kept that CD because that was my favorite CD out of all of those. So this started this love language for me about how lyrics looked on the page. Seventh grade, I had a Harlem Renaissance project. I grew up in the Bronx. Didn't know entirely what the Harlem Renaissance was at the time, so I had to go to the library, and I was at this library with this book for all weekend. Then I checked it out, and I never returned it. So I kept this book in the seventh grade. My mother was not happy with the library bill either. But for me, I finally found myself in stories, and I saw people who were finding connections to their world and their place. So I still have that book to this day, and I bring this to every first day workshop that I teach. So for me, language started with a curiosity, then it got me into, rapping on the bus, on the BX26 bus against random people, but being the shyest person in the world when it came to sharing my personal writing in the classroom. So me, I'm always looking for a language. How does it exist on the page? How does it look on the page? Is it in its final form? And last summer, I discovered this poet, Alexa Patrick. I'm in the Haymarket Book Press Book Club. You get all these books for the month and they give them to you. I love it because there's some poetry books in it, and Alexa Patrick's Remedies for Disappearing was in that collection. Read it once, and then this exciting poem stuck out on the page because it looked like a box. And for me, I think about language, how we can break out of the box. And this poet was using the box to contain language, to control language, look at our eye. And then I spent the next 3 months looking at that one poem over and over and over again, investigating the poem, writing questions to the poem, developing a conversation about how did you truly come about. So then that had me drawing my own boxes. I can't draw to save my life. I'm a writer, so I trace post-it notes heavily, and I traced post-it notes over and over and over, and then started to play with language and try to tell a story, one that can't be controlled and one that can be controlled. So for me, this experiment started in that space. I was then able to bring it to my students as an individual container, one for accessing language, but thinking language through small fragments, right? So 10 words or less as a sentence, and each box is a sentence. So it became more accessible for our students. And then we also had a collective conversation because we were able to take one line and tell a holistic story together. So for me, it became a play space, but it also brought more energy into my writing last summer. I took a little mini notebook, a square notebook with me that I have here with me on vacation. And every day of vacation, I was playing with this and working on a collection based off these experiments. So excited to play with you all today as we think about language, how it can be a container and how it can be accessible for us and others at the same time.
I love that, Jay, and I love how it went from 10 music, CDs to now all the Haymarket books each month. I see these clubs as a through line in a gorgeous way. So what's interesting, what Jay discovered and is still exploring with the boxes, which we're going to play today, is you're going to think at CWP, that's Community Word Project, we call ourselves CWP, we're obsessed with grids, and we kind of are because when I was a teaching artist and working with these fourth grade boys, they were obsessed with science fiction. I know some about science fiction, not as much as they did. The movie The Matrix came out. Now I'm dating myself, and I had to get a way to get them engaged. So I said, guys, we're gonna create our own Matrix, and they're like, what? And basically, it's this. So guys, we're actually gonna I'm gonna invite you guys all into the Matrix. So this is a matrix. It might look like a chart or a set of boxes, but we're going to activate it into something. We're going to activate it into its own universe. And depending if you want to take the red pill or the blue pill or whatever pill, you are officially welcome to the matrix. And what we're going to do is we're going to generate group vocabulary. And what's going to happen is if you guys could get into that document. And while you're doing that, I will share a little bit about what this is. So we're going to add words. I'm going to challenge you to add words that are spicy or juicy or fancy words that are either an emotion, a gem color, a mood, an action. And from the words that we generate, we're going to use these words to create our grid poems. So jump right in, and you can put in and try and be haphazard where you put them. Like, you don't have to put them in order. We're going to see the matrix form before our very eyes. And what we say in the classroom and what we say whenever we do this is there's no wrong answers. So all your words are perfect. And whoever put in neon, thank you. And I should have said this at the beginning, and we can add more rows. If you want to put in words in your native language, please do. We welcome all languages to the matrix. And we're just looking to see if there's any doubles. If there are, that's the one thing with the matrix, is we want to keep each word to be original. Okay, last call, as we say. Oh, Jay added another row. Okay.
I added one last row so we could figure out if anyone wants to add another word from a different language, if you want
Yep.
to add some more exciting colors. And if you are having trouble, add the word in the chat and we'll make sure we get it onto this matrix as well.
Oh, thank you. I love everyone's words. So we do this, it's so much easier to start from a collective language than a blank page. So this is the beauty of the matrix. We also, when we work with the matrix, whether we're doing it in our personal writing or in a classroom setting, we always encourage who's ever writing with the matrix to use language in a new way, right? So, and that's the beauty of the matrix, is it gives you permission to play with language that you might not have on the ready in your own head. And it's also how a poet's mind works. We have all these words swirling around, and we bring them together to create new ways of seeing and being seen. All right, I think we're good. All right, so Jay, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. So now we have some words on our canvas. So that's our first step. Our next step is let's get inspired a little bit more. We're going to read this poem a little bit in several different ways. The first time we'll read it, I'll have Michele join me in reading it, and then I'll ask the audience, so maybe one or two other individuals, to help us to read this as well. We'll open up the floor for a moment of question or two as we think about the change in structure. But first, why are we so extra? From Alexa Patrick. Michele, I'll have you, we'll read it in order this time and do it something else. Why are you so extra?
What else could I be but wild?
Two angry men slept inside my childhood.
Dandelions convinced they were flowers.
Little wishes wasted everywhere.
I learned to fight by growing wide as seeds.
I played at the edge of a busy road.
So many fists attempting to pull me from the root.
I stayed.
What else could I be but wild?
So the first way we read it, we're just following the boxes and experiencing the poet's voice, just seeing how does this story connect. The second time we will read it in a random order. I'll ask Michele to read this one more time with me, and then I'll open up the floor for an audience member or two to read it as well. So Michele, anywhere you want to start us.
Little wishes wasted everywhere.
I played at the edge of a busy road.
What else could I be but wild?
Dandelions convinced they were flowers.
I stayed.
I learned to fight by growing wide as seeds.
Two angry men slept inside my childhood.
So many fists attempting to pull me from the root. So we'll pause there. In the chat, how does the interpretation change? How does your understanding of the poem change with the different readings? And we also have time for maybe one or two voices. Feel free to raise your hand so we can make sure we give you the floor space. Does the meaning change? Does your experience change to the poem with it being read in a different way?
A question I always have when I see work like this is it important to know where to begin? And how, as a reader, does it matter? And I love the freedom of being able to start anywhere.
Yeah, I see the chat. Second version sounded more frenetic and spoke to being wild. And there's a request to hear this one more time, and we will definitely do that. We'll read it one more time. And again, we'll read it in an order that speaks to us the most. I do this with my students. Sometimes this becomes a chorus, sometimes it becomes a vocal trail. Sometimes when we're reading this, we will stop if someone says the same line at the same time and restart it, right? With the goal of making sure each line is read, but also thinking through how does our experience change? How does the meaning of the poem change as we read through these different versions? We'll start again. This time I will start it off, Michele. Then if you want to join me in reading this one last time, I stayed.
I played at the edge of a busy road.
Dandelions convinced they were flowers.
So many fists attempting to pull me from the root.
I learned to fight by growing wide as seeds.
What else could I be but wild?
Two angry men slept inside my childhood.
Dandelions convinced they were flowers.
So again, I'm just going to shout out some things we hear in the chat. Interesting exercise to think about which image stands out depending on the order you read, right? So image is things that are coming up to us. Second version added emphasis to different aspects of the language used. Freedom of reading in any order feels like an invitation to the reader to co-create experience meaning. The imagery provides connective tissue, no matter the order, and different versions can feel more hopeful, right? So changing can mean things. This helps me to think about the arrangement of a poem as well. And it's a great exercise for arrangement, or if you have a poem and you're trying to figure out what order should I put things in. So that is our sample text. We want to get us to some more inspiration behind it. Michele, do you want to add anything else before we give out some
No.
directions?
Yeah, let's go to directions. Let's get us activated. Thank you, Jay.
So what we have here are two different grid options, option A, option B. And these things will help you to write your very own poem, just like Alexa Patrick. So our hope is for each box, you do want to try to keep every answer or every poetic line around 10 words or less. You can always use that matrix as that container to pull words in from, to pull ideas from. Option A, It's like you start off with a question. I believe every poem has some kind of question they are considering. So you start off a question, you think about a personal anecdote with a number. When I was 11, I cut my finger by throwing the garbage out. You add your metaphor or your simile. You think about an observation, an I statement. Want to think about a location from childhood that's real or imagined. You want to think about the personification of nature and a movement. The Alexa Patrick piece had a lot of personification of nature moments. So this is the first version that I came up with as I was thinking about how did these lines come together. Another version is option B, rhetorical question, fractured memory, a time conundrum, something witnessed, a still moment, a location, the body as a defense mechanism, as an I statement. Feel free if you want to pick and choose from the two boxes to make your own conversation or poetic piece for you. I'll share an example that I came up with, and I'll send it over to Michele for her example. My piece is writing as a practice for internal, or is it eternal safety? It's tough finding ways to express yourself that doesn't get you in trouble. I thought happiness was self-destructive, something not found within, like replacement lovers or a junk drawer, always searching for what I thought I already had. It's tough.
I love that, Jay. Crisis speed is its own dimension of time. Those who couldn't afford to leave stayed. Every child is born knowing how to wish. When you want a certain kind of ending, when you want, period. When minutes have their own panic attack, hours shiver and days blur. The cord around my neck at birth almost estranged me from breath. It's true that when one sense shuts down, the others compensate. The safety room became something else. I confused trust with peace. Those of us who couldn't afford to leave stayed. So guys, now we're going to give you time to try this out individually. And one of the things you have the document, so you can keep going back to option A, option B. And a question folks might have is, where do you start? And you can start anywhere. That's the beauty of it. So you don't have to create from right to left. You can create from left to right. You can create from any starting point. Jay, should any other instruction to give out?
No, I would just definitely echo every box as an entry point. You can start anywhere and be inspired by it. Pull words from the matrix. You have two different spots if you want to create from. Select any number from 1 to 32. That can be your own page to draft something and write something. You could also feel free to scribble in your notebook, trace a nice little post-it note, and then you could type something as well. So that's just the first steps, and we are here if you have any questions or need some support. are back. Our individual pieces have, started to develop. We might not be finished, but that is okay. We are going to move on to the next part, and that will be the group portion of this. On that same Google Doc, you'll find a collective space for when you will be in breakout rooms. So you're going to go into breakout rooms quickly of groups of 4. I want you to bring in 2 of your favorite lines from your piece that you wrote. So bring it in 2 of your favorite lines. With your group members, you're going to arrange a collective poem from your all's individual poems. So bring it in 2 individual lines each. We'll give you 8 lines. And the goal is to arrange them into a collective grid poem. Adjusted the rules that are there just for time safety. So again, bring in 2 lines from your own poem. You are then going to share those out, put them in a grid, and collectively think of the arrangement, and then just choose one person to share back to the group when we return. You'll have 7 minutes exactly in that breakout space because we do want to hear these when we come back. If you do have time after arranging it, please share your complete individual grids.
Guys, remember, don't overthink, just let the play happen and beautiful things will happen from that play.
What if I could fly?
Breathing in and out with my hand on my heart.
Glowing, intuitive, emerald.
Surfacing.
Bright orange flowers falling from trees like it was time to die.
Who does opal belong to?
I hid in the backyard.
I was free.
What if I could fly?
Oh, that's amazing. Wow. I love that. Okay, this is the hard part because we all want to like give flowers and all of that, but I want to make sure that we hear from voices, as many voices as possible. This is truly beautiful. And I love the reading of it. It so worked.
Where do I see myself?
We were a sanctuary of 3.
Peace is a quiet river flowing through a storm.
I'm still hungry.
We repeat,
After school joy and sanctuary.
the wind holding me up away from the ground.
I look for a path to follow.
Very nice.
Beautiful, guys. And it's funny because this corner here tends to be repeated, like it's the starting and the ending. And that's just, I'm just thinking out loud about how that is such a special space, that corner.
Yeah.
So thank you for that little moment of observation. Thank you, Felice, for this beautiful opportunity. I love our round circle of bringing the work together. And Sean, it's been, I love having the support. So thank you. And always love to Jay. What a pleasure to have the creative forces going together. Keep writing, people, keep trying to experiment and explore. And the matrix is with you. You should keep going with it. It's a really fun tool to play with.